And welcome back. Welcome back to the channel, and most importantly, to each a good day. Well, you can see that we've got a kit out here, and this kit that you're looking at right now is from Jordan Distributors Inc., or JDI as they're known in the industry. And you can see that this is for a Dodge, and it is their Ghost Lock product. So as we spoke about in the previous video, we're going to be putting Ghost Lock as well as Ghost Power, but in this video we're going to cover the Ghost Lock into our police charger. So depending on the order in which you may be watching these videos, or the order I have them uploaded, in the previous video we replaced the ECU with an unlocked one from Diablo Sport. So now what we want to do is get this product installed. And if you've watched the Hellcat videos, this is the same concept of a product that we have in the Hellcat. It'll allow us to do tracking, as you can see from the TrackMate GPS module here, and this module will also allow us to control a relay, which will allow us to turn the fuel pump off. So should anything happen theft wise, or the need to shut the fuel pump off remotely, we could do so from any PC or any internet activated device basically. And as you can see here, I just got the kind of kit opened up, and yes, I did open up some of these packages when the kit arrived just to kind of take a look at a few things. So these packages, when you get them, will come completely sealed. This is not the way this came to me. So you can see the main GPS module here, and yes, you'll notice that is from TrackMate. So you will need a subscription in order to utilize the full functionality of this kit. In order to utilize the GPS tracking as well as the fuel cutoff feature, it does require a subscription through TrackMate. You can see we got an adapter here, and this will be the adapter that goes to our fuel pump. Give us some zip ties to kind of help secure everything. Well, these would be the relays here for our relay harness. And of course, we've got the main beefy harness itself. And what this harness is going to do is plug up to battery power, as well as you can see our two relays there. It also supplies the power and connectivity into the GPS device, as well as the fuel pump. Now, this harness, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we do the install, this harness is actually doing two things. Now, they make a universal version of this kit, and if you look at the universal version of the kit, it almost looks identical to this wiring harness you see here. Hence why you see an adapter that takes these white connections here and converts them down to the Mopar used connector on this particular charger. And you can see there, this covers a 2017 to 2023 charger. I think this will also work for the Challengers as well, but don't quote me on that one. So, like I said, we'll get into this a little bit more, but the reason why there's two relays there, they're actually doing a second purpose with this harness, and that is, you'll notice this big beefy power line here with this nice big honkin' fuse on it. And what it's going to do is actually run a separate power tap for the fuel pump. So right now, the way this vehicle is configured, the fuel pump is run by the, I want to say I believe it's the PCM or BCM, one of the two. But it's controlled via a fuse in the rear distribution block of this. So what's going to happen is, rather than the particular module that's controlling our fuel pump now, they're basically going to take that signal, route it to a relay. So basically the car will control a relay now instead of the fuel pump module, and then this relay in turn will then provide power on and off to the fuel pump. So what it's doing is it's giving you a much beefier, more capability to get higher current draw to that fuel pump should you need it. Now, the way this vehicle is configured stock, you could do this entire setup, to be honest with you, with a single relay, but the kit does give you that nice upgrade potential where if you're doing items where you need to put bigger fuel pumps or a second fuel pump in the future and you need that increased current draw, well, your wiring's already taken care of by installing this kit. And when you do something like that in the future that does require that higher amperage draw to your fuel pump, you don't have to worry about that wiring. You've already taken care of it here. And it looks like we've got some registration notes about how to handle the GPS tracker. some cautionary literature about never try to recover a stolen vehicle on your own. We've also got a note about plugging in this GPS module into that main wiring harness. They want to make sure that you seat that connector fully and get those arrows to line up that you see there. And of course, as you can see here, we've got some stickers. And there's the link about watching the install guide before you begin. And of course, another business card from JDI themselves. Now, I've watched the install video on this one, and it's very similar to a install video that was done on the Hellcat. Now, we got some unique differences here in this vehicle, and that's going to be what we have to disassemble, because if you remember, it still has the police interior on here, meaning the modified back seat. So we don't have quite the disassembly process that you would have if you have the normal back seat on this, and we'll cover that more when we get to it. So what we need to do for now, I'm not going to disconnect the battery as of yet, but what I want to do at least first is we need to get this side, the carpeted panel, off and out of the way. And then on the inside of the vehicle, what we're going to have to do is just loosen these 4 fasteners you may have saw in the previous video, and basically give us the ability to kind of pull this bio seat forward, because where we need to get is to the fuel pump, and I believe it's right about in here on the driver's side. So we need to get to work on that, and then I will bring you back. You're not missing much on this. If you saw the previous video on here where we were kind of going through and removing everything, you've got some clips here. These just pull out. I'll give you an example, just like that. You've got this light here that needs to come out. You got some Christmas tree clips. This is a small Torx bit to get this little luggage holder out of here. And eventually we'll be able to remove this whole side bolster as one piece. Yeah, just clips, Christmas tree clips. I may pull this up out of here as well, because we're going to need to get power back to this main positive. So let me get to work on that. Let me get this out of here. Let me get the bolts taken out to get that bio seat pushed forward, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we've got our side piece. Well, I didn't completely remove it, but just enough to kind of get it out of the way, as you can see here, because ultimately what we're just looking to do is snake the wiring harness kind of along this way and that way towards where our fuel connection's at. Now there's a couple of Christmas tree clips that you probably saw me also remove in a previous video that hold this top on. Other than that, it's just a series of magnets. So once you get these clips, Christmas tree clips out of there, you can pull this down enough to kind of gain access to it. And where I like to put the GPS tracker is just kind of up in this area here in the center deck lid. And I'll show you a little bit more of that when we get to it. But you can see we got the bio seat unbolted and at least pulled out of the way enough that we can work on it. I really didn't, in order to get this completely out of here, it is a bit of an art, because the door gets in the way, and I would have to either pull this whole panel off, which still may not give us enough room, or disassemble some of this cage so this will tilt a little bit farther forward, or by chance even just unloosen the door up in order to get the clearance to get this out of here. So again, I just want to get it pushed off to the side that we can get to what we needed, which is the fuel pump that you see here. Now, if you're doing this and you're taking the actual seat out, which would be easier to do because it would be in multiple pieces, then you'll have much more access to this. But you can see we got plenty of access to get to what we need, which is the top of this fuel tank. And you see the wiring for our fuel pump. So what we're going to start by doing is just taking this plastic cover off of here, and you'll see it looks like somebody lost a drill bit. I don't know if you can see that right there. Let's just put my finger on it. Let's see if we can get that out of that groove. It looked like they were possibly drilling into something when they probably put the bio seat in. There we go. And unfortunately lost a bit. Oh, so free drill bit. Nice. So what I need to determine is if I think this black piece will come out of here in one go. Yeah, it would have to come out of there because it's the only way you'd be able to get the fuel pump out is to take this piece out of here. So I'm gonna work on getting this piece up out of here. It looks like it's just type of a rubber plug. We just need to get it far enough up out of its groove that we can get it popped out, and that'll get us to the wiring that we need to go underneath, because we're going to be pushing some additional wiring through this top grommet that you see right here in order to make our electrical connections to our pump. And the electrical connection is going to be that adapter, and I'll show you that when we get to it. But let me work on getting this top cap out of here, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we got our plastic cover off of our top, and this, again, it's just like a weather cover, dirt cover to keep stuff from underneath the vehicle from coming up inside the vehicle. We also got our rubber stopper out of our cover as well, because again, we're going to need to run some additional wiring through that. But you can see we got our prize below, which is our fuel pump connector. We do have the battery disconnected at this time. Earlier we didn't do it because we were just kind of taking stuff out of the way, but before messing with any electrical, especially ones going to a fuel system, you definitely want to take care of that, and that has been done. So what we should be able to do here is that we need to get this connector off and then replace it with our adapter. And you can see our adapter here. Now you got some of these wires on this adapter that go straight through. In other words, we're not modifying anything to do with these particular wires here at all. And these ones here, if I remember correctly, they have to do with the float level, are basically your fuel gauge sensor. So we're not modifying those. Now the two left over that we are modifying, if I'm looking at the wiring diagram correctly, is just going to be the positive and the ground, or positive and negative, if you want to call it that as well, to the fuel pump itself. Remember, these two go to their harness, to the ghost lock harness. This one's going to go to our fuel pump, and this one is going to be from our plug, what our factory wiring harness will now plug into instead of the fuel pump itself. So yep, I'm gonna need to get in here. This is a rather tight clip. Yeah, I'm gonna need to get in here and kind of get in here with both hands to get this out of here. So let me work on this and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So yeah, that was on there beefy. That had some tension on that clip. Of course, I guess it's a fuel pump connection, so you definitely want to make sure that stays secure. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our ghost lock harness, and this side is going to go on our fuel pump. There we go. We're nice and locked in. I don't know if you heard that click or not. This side is going to go to our factory harness, as you can see there. And then these two, I'm not sure yet if they're going to stay down here or if we're going to route these through. They may not be long enough to necessarily route through that top grommet. What we're gonna do next is just get the rest of the wiring harness in here and just kind of see how much slack here that we've got to play with. If we got enough slack off the factory harness, then we'll just kind of tuck all of our electrical connections up underneath here. That way they're just not, you know, laying up underneath the seat. But I don't know, we'll have to take a look at it. But either way, I'm rambling on too much. So we'll make that connection then there to our fuel pump is done, and then we'll make this connection here to our factory harness. There you go. I don't know if you heard that little bit of a pop, a little bit of a click. So that one is in, and then what we got left is just the connections that'll go to our ghost lock harness. So let me get that harness run and bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we started to run our wiring. We made a little extra hole in our grommet that you can see there on the top of our lid and pushed our ghost lock wiring through, and we've got it plugged into our adapter. So this adapter is keyed, one side's male, one side's female, so they're only going to go into one spot, and they will kind of lock in place. You can see they've got a locking tab on the top of them, so we've got those in. And the little wiring coming off this adapter wasn't going to be long enough to kind of come through the group through this grommet and have this wiring on the other side of this, which is why we went ahead and just pushed this through. So you can see our electrical connections to our fuel pump are all made at this point. What we can do now is find a spot for our ground. Now, originally, watching their instructions, if we would have had the factory seats, there's a bolt they actually suggest that you can use to ground this too. Now, since we have this bio seat in here, and the factory seats were removed a long time ago, I mean, we got a couple of different bolt options that we can choose from. We've got the middle seat belt bolts that you can see right there. Those are actually used, these lower ones, once we get some newer ones in. The seat belts are actually bolt to here, the ones that come with the bio seat. It doesn't use that upper bolt there. So we could in theory use that one. We could also use one of the two bolts you see there that bolt the spare tire holder in, would be a good ground. But also, we just happen to notice here on the driver's side, if we look kind of towards the rear wheel well, you can see we actually do have a factory grounding point that we can take advantage of. Now the eyelet they give you, because they meant for this to ground to a slightly different bolt, is huge, as well as the wiring is plentiful. What I may do, I'm still debating it, I may put a smaller eyelet on there. I mean, yeah, I mean, that would work. It would make enough surface contact to kind of be okay, but the bolt's not going to grab it very well just because of the size of that. Now, if we look at the size of this eyelet, you know, there are several other possibilities. You know, there's some unused studs right there. If I've got a bolt inside the garage, that'll fit. But like I said, we can also, and I'm debating it, I may use that seat belt bolt right there as a potential ground, and or the one that you just see right there that kind of bolts the spare tire holder in place, because the size of that eyelet, just to show you, see, it fits in there quite well, and it would actually make a really good connection at that point. So I may do that. So what I'm going to do is work on getting this wiring cleaned up a little bit. Now, I won't put a lot of this back together, the trim. We will get all the wiring connections at least made, but we're going to want to test this first before we go through the trouble of putting our covers and caps and everything else back on, and you know, in case there's an issue, we don't have to save ourselves some time from taking it all back apart again. So let me work on that. Let me get some wiring done. I think I'm going to eyeball that one ground screw again. We're going to use that for our ground screw, and see about getting things, well, I'll bring you back and we'll continue to run the wiring harness into the rear trunk. So one moment. And we'll get back. So I'm going to show you what we decided to do with our ground here. And if JDI happens to watch this video, please forgive me. But this was their original grounding connector. If you can see, nice big meaty eyelet, and as we talked about earlier, there's several locations that this eyelet would fit, but we don't have the original location in here because we don't have the original seats. But I didn't like the way this was shaping up, because there's a lot of paint here on either one of those fasteners or even those fasteners that I would have to scrape off to ensure a good ground. And since we know that we had a nice good factory body ground right there where you see the stud, because I've got the nut off of it right now, ended up just replacing their eyelet. So it's using the same gauge eyelet as far as the incoming wire, just a smaller diameter opening. As you can see there, this is more suited for that stud, and we got a lot more meat and surface area that bolt slash washer can sit on and kind of grab and make sure that we get a good ground. So what we're doing is just running that ground wire in through underneath this trim panel, and inside this pillar trim there's actually a channel that we fed the wire up into, and it actually ended up coming out quite nicely right where you see the opening there. So what we can do now is just take our ground just like that, and then we'll get our ground bolt all tightened up, and that'll secure that one. So we'll get that one tightened up, finish securing that one, and then we'll bring you back and finish routing the wiring going into our trunk. So one moment. And welcome back. So we get the wiring taken care of, and we're not done with it yet, because like I said earlier, we want to do some testing with this before we really finally just button things up. But I'll show you kind of what it looks like once we take care of this next piece, and that is going to be plugging in this GPS tracker into the harness itself. Now we've already registered this online and gave it a subscription, but we do need to tell it that it has been installed so it can start its tracking purposes. But if we do as the instructions stated, you may not be able to see that because they're fairly small. Line up the arrows and push, 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 push. There we go. Make sure we're nice and seated. And there we go. We're starting to get some activity lights here. There you go. We're blue. Now, my understanding, I think blue means we're in the process of registering. And then blue flashing may mean that it's already registered. But good, we're getting activity. We're definitely getting GPS. All right, perfect. So I'm going to kind of just let this thing do its thing. I'm going to go in and check the account and tell them that this has now been installed, and then we can come back and do some testing. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, we got a notification from the software that it sees the device now. It's been registered and activated, and I can actually see it on their GPS maps. So I wanted to show you kind of where I like to put that tracker, and just kind of in this little pocket of an area, almost not quite center of this deck lid. But I did this on the Hellcat. It's been kind of in this location since it's been installed, and it's been just fine. So we're going to kind of do the same thing here. There are a couple of different places you can put that, but you've got to keep in mind that you're limited to the length of cable coming off the harness. But I want to show you what we did. We're using some of these magnetic cable ties, and you'll see another one way up there, kind of on the top of the wheel well hump. Just kind of keeping that wire as far back before it goes into this deck lid cover, or this underneath this deck lid here. Just keeping the wire away from the spring and away from the joint, so we don't get caught up in that. What I'm doing for mounting the relay packs is, and there's just one critique I have on this, it would be nice to have the relays with the mounting tabs on top, but you know, no harm, no foul. There's just plenty of space right here on the passenger side behind this cover. And we just ran the battery positive along the factory wire loom here, coiled up the excess, and tapped it into our battery positive here that goes into our rear distribution box. So it's got battery, it's got the main battery feed that we're looking for, and what we're using to mount that to the wall, and you've seen me use this before, this is the 3M double-sided body panel tape. This stuff will hold up, let me tell you. We've got a small piece of it actually on inside the cab of the red Ram. When we put the aftermarket radio in, we took the microphone and kind of just stuck it to the top of the dash. And so far, that little piece of body panel, double-sided body panel adhesive tape has withstood our normal down south hot, like you wouldn't get out summers. And just imagine a very hot summer inside the cab of a vehicle gets just that much hotter, and so far that tape hasn't even shown any signs of getting weak. So I think that same tape here will do just fine. There was a nice flat spot in the metal, so you can see that we just mounted our fuse and our relay pack, so that now that's done, getting our wiring situated. But at this point we can now do a little bit of testing since the software now sees it. So what we're going to do is make sure that we can just start the vehicle. That'll verify our relays and our fuel pump is able to work with this harness. And then once we get the vehicle up and running, we'll go into the software, we'll kill the fuel pump, verify it does that job, and then we'll turn the vehicle off, re-enable the fuel pump, and just make sure that we can start the vehicle again. So I'm going to change the camera battery with you, and I'll bring you right back and we'll do some testing. So one moment.
And welcome back. So as we stated earlier, I've just got you setting up on the tripod in the center console here, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and see if we can just start the vehicle. So that's going to validate that we've got power going to that new harness, we got relays are doing what they're supposed to do, and we're obviously getting power to the fuel pump. There we go. So as you can hear, and I'll show you a picture of the dash here. As you can hear and see, we're running. We're just going to let it run for a little bit here and kind of come down off high idle before I do this. But I've already got the vehicle up in the software. I can't show you my phone because it's got a lot of GPS information in it. But I'll show you that I'm not doing anything funny with the ignition, or I'm not faking this in any way. So now that we're coming down off high idle, we're just going to say ignition fuel pump, and I'm going to say disable now. Okay, we just disabled the fuel pump. It'll take it a few minutes for it to get that command. So as you can see, it's not quite an immediate thing. It's starting to stumble. It's unhappy. And there we go. And as you can see, the fuel pump is disabled. You see the ignition is still set to run. You can see the dash is rather unhappy. And let's get rid of the annoying beeping. Let's turn that off and give that a few minutes. Now we're going to go back into the software. And we're going to say ignition fuel pump. And I'm going to say enable now. And we're going to give that a few minutes to realize the fuel pump is now re-enabled. I think I just heard a click from one of the relays. So this is what we're going to do next. We're not going to start it. I'm just going to key cycle it a couple of times. Yeah, I can hear the fuel pumps running. I can hear it prime. So I'm going to shut it down. We're going to do it one more time to let it prime that fuel rail, because it's going to be pretty empty. Okay, now let's see if we can start back up. All right, perfect. Beautiful. So it is doing exactly what it should be doing at this point. So let me shut this off so I'm not talking over the engine. And then we'll come back and discuss a little bit more about the wiring harness itself. So one moment. And welcome back. Well, we just did a successful test here. As you can see, we're just in the process of getting all this buttoned up and getting our trim and everything put back together. But I wanted to touch base on this relay pack a little bit. If you want, I can go into detail on this on another video on exactly how that relay pack is functioning if you're so interested. But the reason why you're dealing with two relays here and not just one, because you may be thinking, well, you can kill a fuel pump with just one relay, and you can. The reason why you're dealing with two relays here is, remember, this harness is also giving you a much more robust power feed to that fuel pump that you're not getting from the factory. Now, again, in this case, we don't need the ability for have increased amperage at that fuel pump just yet, but we do have some things planned for this particular police cruiser that once we're done, we may need to install a second and or a more high capacity pump, which will have a higher current draw. So we'll already have a nice robust power feed. But that's why you're dealing with one relay that's supplying power to the pump, and you're dealing with another relay that's what's being used by that GPS device to control whether the the fuel pump is on and or off. But again, I can go into much more detail on that if you want, but we'll have to do it in a separate video because it'll get in the weeds, and not a lot of people like it when I tend to get in the weeds. So what we're going to do is just continue to button all this up, put our trim back in. We're just going to put some tie wraps on this, get this cleaned up, and obviously get a cover put back on, and then we should be good. But I'll bring you back once I get all that done and just kind of show you what all that looks like once it's all been policed up, pardon the pun. So one moment. And welcome back. So before we put this bio seat back in place, I just wanted to show you that we've got that cover snapped back in. Now there's enough, like I said, there's enough of a gap on the edges under this before it hits where the fuel pump's at, that you can kind of just tuck the extra wiring off to the side. You may have to fidget with it a little bit, but this cover will eventually snap back down in place. And you can see we just kind of secured the rest of it with just a few tie wraps. And what I like to do is, when we ran our cabling, if I didn't point this out earlier, I like to follow the factory harness where possible. So I'll probably put maybe one more tie wrap right there, right where that T's at, just to help secure this. And then we'll get the bio seat back in, and I'll bring you back. So one moment. And welcome back. You can see we got everything buttoned back up, all of our trims back in, all of our carpet is back in at this place, at this point in time, I should say. And you can see we've got our bio seat re-secured as well. So if you hadn't watched this vehicle, or video I should say, or aware of this vehicle, then you wouldn't even be aware that this system is now installed, which is what I like most about their kits, is that, as you saw, everything plugs into factory harnesses. Everything's designed to work with the factory system. They do have universal kits in case they don't have one for your specific make and model, but just be mindful that you're going to have to do a little extra work on the universal kits to get it to work with your setup. And there is a difference on this one, just to caveat that this one does not use a fuel pump control module. If we did, it would look different. If you go back and look at our Hellcat install, that one does use a fuel pump control module, and it's a completely different wiring harness. So keep that in mind. They do make universal kits, but be mindful. You need to know whether you're using a fuel pump control module or if you can just tap into the fuel pump directly, kind of like it does here. So you saw us modify that one ground connection. I want to reiterate, that is not a dig in the kit. It is not a negative in any way, shape, or form. Our install procedure is a little bit different on this one because, again, this is a retired police cruiser. So not having to remove the back seat and having the exact same attachment points because that back seat isn't there and the hardware isn't there meant we had to go to a slightly different grounding location. But no harm, no foul. We found the grounding location on the side there, and as you can see from the previous clip, it works quite fine. So with that being said, we're one more project done on our Project Police Cruiser. We are also going to install, and I think I may have said this at the beginning of the video, we're also going to be installing the Ghost Power application, which is that it gives us the ability to disable the ignition system to where even the factory fob will no longer start the vehicle unless you have a special fob with you. And we'll cover that more when we do that video, but kit wise and function wise, it'll look exactly the same as what we did in our Hellcat video, but it's going to look a little slightly different because we're on a Charger application, and again, we still have the police interior on this one. We don't have the factory center console, so be on the lookout for that one. And with that being said, thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we've got much more to come. I will put links in the description below to all the products that you saw us use here today, as well as to the JDI website in case you want to get one of these kits yourself, and to the bits and pieces and connectors and things of that nature that we also used for that one eyelet replacement. And with that being said, I will let you go, and I will bring you back for the next one. Thank you much. Bye.